Hello and welcome to a very special Something Rotten. Why is it special? Why? Because we're hearing from you, of course. This is our season finale on the Max Payne series. It's just me and it's just Blake. We're hearing your questions that you sent in to somethingrottenpodcast@gmail.com, and Blake, we're ready to answer them.
Jacob, I'm ready to launch into the first question. This one comes from dear listener Blake Hester. Is this the first time we've recorded 2 episodes in one day?
Blake, we can't tell them that. We gotta maintain kayfabe.
I think it is the first time we've ever recorded twice in one day.
I think so too. Not the first time I've recorded 2 podcasts in one day. I'm running that shit, true. Burning candle at both ends, burning the midnight oil.
Wow.
I love to do podcasts.
Is that true?
They're fine. I really enjoy them, but since they're not my main job, they do... Like, you think of a podcast and you're like, this is going to take like an hour and a half. Like, it won't take that much time out of my day. But then it's like... and it takes... Like, I never finish a podcast and I'm like, right back to writing. Because it's just like your brain gets used up.
It used to be. Now that I don't work at Game Informer, I can reveal that, I was shitting on company dime and I was podding on company dime. Just didn't give a fuck. I was getting paid the same way. But now I'm contract. And technically I'm getting paid the same.
But it's like what. you're podding on your own time.
Yeah, it feels worse somehow, even though like it doesn't affect my pay every month. Sorry, I was closing my blinds. It was very bright in here. But yeah,
Now, when I used to work at a boring office job that did not require me to do work for all the hours in the day, I would just go to like longform.com or like, Reddit r/in-depth stories and just read like a bunch of those every day, because I was like, okay, I'm not doing... And, that felt like better for them to walk in on than if I was, like, playing a video game or something. But it would just be like, I'm doing bullshit. And similarly, since I stopped, it's like, weirdly, I feel like I have less time to do that kind of thing. Even though I set my own schedule. I could do it as much as I wanted.
And that's a fact. Let's get into it, Jacob. First things first. To everyone. All across the world, practically. Though... I think a few countries less than the first merch drop. I didn't see any Asia orders this time. Thank you to everyone who bought merch. I know that was a little while ago at this point. However, these things do not move as quickly as you ever want them to. However, by the time this episode is released, orders are showing up at people's houses. So
yeah, and we want to see them. If you get that shirt, tweet it at us, please.
Absolutely. But thank you everyone who bought one. Thank you everyone who's been patient. I'll have Jacob, I assume you know this, but there's one man shipping every single order for us.
That's right.
God bless Johnny Munch, who we will talk about a little later in this episode. But just a quick update. They're coming.
Thanks, Johnny.
Here they are. They're on the ground. They're in boats. They're however mail gets to you.
All right, Blake, what the hell is the second update that you've written here?
It's not an update. I just feel like we need to address something. Jacob, you do not read our emails.
Nope.
Correct? Okay. So everyone remember who your favorite host is. It's the one who reads your emails, Blake. I would say our most requested game is Cruelty Squad. Yeah. And I'd like us to talk about this. And if I may... draw a line in the sand before you give your thoughts. I'm not playing Cruelty Squad, folks. Please stop asking. It looks really cool. It looks aggressively not for me.
Yeah, this is a game that, and I've said this before, so I mean, I assume these are new people who are asking for it. Hate to do this. Hate to say it. So many people have told me to play Cruelty Squad and to make a video about it, that now I'm not doing it through some kind of, like, just out of spite. I just like, in my brain, it's just like when enough people tell you to do something, you're like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, it's just become, like, unappealing to me to play it, even though I bet I would find interesting things in it.
I'd like to go on record and say that is not why I'm saying we're not going to do a season of it. I actually do like reading through the game recommendations, and I feel like at least once or twice, like we have done a season and been like, hey, a lot of people wanted us to do this game. Maybe it was last. I can't remember. No, it was Disco Elysium. Anyway, one of them. Like we've taken listener recommendations before. And a week or two ago, I did some Cruelty Squad research. I watched Sea Dog VA's VOD, the video he uploaded of him playing the game, and I was like, ain't no fucking way. Ain't no fucking way. The listeners, please keep writing in with game suggestions. Just not Cruelty
I mean,
Squad.
it's like
not gonna play it.
To be clear, I think they're probably right. Like it seems like a rotten game. It seems interesting, but I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 and I haven't played Cruelty Squad, and it's like sometimes we just don't do the things that are best for us, and that's how it goes.
I think Cruelty Squad would actually be bad for me. That just seems aggressively not.
Yeah,
like
so remember that, listeners.
It looks cool, just not for me. Just like, I don't know, like Sim City looks cool, but it's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, smoking looks cool, not for me.
Not for me anymore. I haven't smoked.
But we're not arguing that it doesn't look cool. It objectively looks so cool.
God, it looks so cool. New York, a smoker's heaven. People smoking everywhere in New York, and every time I see one, I'm like, man, you look fucking so cool. We've talked about how my 6 cents for cigarettes, right?
Yeah, I know, and people have agreed with you.
Yeah, 6 zip codes away, I could smell a cigarette. Let's get to the first question.
Yeah, this question is from your friend Bird. I was wondering if either of you noticed the subtler nods to Norse myth in the first game being Max Payne.
Max Payne 1.
While things like Valkyr and the Ragnarok nightclub are pretty in your face, there's also the fact that the first game takes place during a historic blizzard, a nod to the Fimbulwinter that signals the twilight of the gods, or that Alfred Woden, an older Gaelic form of the name Odin, only has one eye, like his namesake, or that the secretive network you dive into for information on Valkyr is called Yggdrasil, something I don't think is mentioned in dialogue, or that Max's partner, Alex Balder, dying to kick off the plot proper is a parallel to how Balder dies to begin Ragnarok. If you did notice, I'd love to hear further thoughts on it, whether it was just set dressing or an interesting Oh Brother Where Art Thou style retelling, and if you didn't, well, you know now. Thanks for an incredible pod. Looking forward to next season. Thank you, Bird.
I wanted to include this question or this comment because no, I didn't pick up on any of this. This email blew my mind. I'm a complete dummy. It all went over my head.
Yeah, so. I mean, I did get the Yggdrasil thing because that's pretty popular. I'm sorry, I'm looking for one of my favorite tweets. Does he not have this up anymore? Jackson Tyler, aka at Head Falls Off on Twitter, has a tweet that just says, "Hey, does anybody know about any video games that have a world tree or quote Yggdrasil in them?" Because there are like 500 of them. That's the joke. No, but I mean, the Odin thing with Woden only having one eye is very cool.
Yeah.
And then Balder being spelled differently, but dying to begin Ragnarok. I mean, this is such a, I feel like Norse myth is having a moment right now with God of War and Assassin's Creed and all that. But like, it's always been a Remedy thing. And that's one of the kind of fun things about them is that, when they put it in like Alan Wake 2, I was kind of rolling my eyes, but it's like, oh wait, no, they've been doing this forever and they kind of have more of a claim to it than fucking Sony Santa Monica or whoever.
Yeah, I didn't know any of this. So pretty cool stuff. Speaking of Sony Santa Monica, my knowledge of Norse myth comes from God of War.
I keep trying to tell my dad will be retiring, I don't know, at some point, maybe next year, and he's so big on Neil Gaiman's Norse gods, and I'm like, buddy, you gotta play God of War. Like, you are not burnt out on all the like video game tropes that is why Blake and I get kind of tired of that game. This would just be like an incredible experience for you.
That'd be sick, and I'm sure they have like a story mode or something, right?
They do. I've had him try to play it before. It is really like it is simple game stuff, like just pathfinding. He finds very difficult of just like where the hell am I supposed to go? And we think like, oh look, the world's pointing you that way, but like that's it's one of those things that you don't realize is a learned skill with video games until you see someone who doesn't know how to do it try to do it.
It's really interesting. You guys touched on this. Comes from Rory. H smiley face. You guys touched on this in episode 3 of this season, but I've been thinking about it for a while. A lot of the games you play on the pod are older, at least a few console generations removed from the present, excluding The Last of Us and Disco. Why do you think this is? Are older games simply easier to find because they've been around building reputation for so long, or is there a deeper reason? For example, maybe modern AAA games are too perfect and mass marketable to be rotten, or maybe there's something about janky controls and bad graphics that give a game that rough around the edges, rotten feel. I'm interested to hear your guys' perspective on this, especially considering how often the outdated controls, MSG, and old graphics, Silent Hill 2, come up in your discussions and seem to guide your analysis of the game. Thanks for making my favorite podcast. Wow, thank you. I mean, like, Call of Duty's as rotten as it comes, and they're putting out new ones of those every year. But like, I think this plays into the conversations we've had about the changing AAA landscape. And I'm going to use a terrible example because they're literally remaking Silent Hill 2. But it's like a new equivalent of Silent Hill 2 would not come out and be like that caliber of game this in 2024.
Although
you know what I'm saying?
I compared Alan Wake 2 to Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, but even then, that's like an established brand, a sequel. I'm saying like there would be no.
Okay, well, so is Silent Hill 2.
Right, but it was still pretty new.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I guess Killer 7 is maybe a better example, or a Manhunt, where these are like AAA games of the time, and they are rotten and doing something weird and interesting. You just couldn't do that. Like, it would cost $100 million and it would make no money back.
Yeah.
I think like you have to do a Destiny or a fucking Suicide Squad instead.
I mean, yeah, and we have talked about how The Last of Us 2 is about as high profile of a rotten game that could ever be made. But that rotten, like, the kind of interesting thing in talking about the game is the rottenness of the story is pushing up against the AAA polish of the rest of the game. You know, that like, in a way that in something like a Silent Hill 2 or a Killer 7, like, you're getting so much friction from not just the story, but from the mechanics and whatever, that it feels a little more holistic. I think that Rory's point about building reputation is actually an interesting and good one. And this is something that I think about all the time, especially with the number of games that come out per year. I worry that like the ability of games to kind of build up a word of mouth over time is getting harder. And maybe it just feels harder for me because I was not as present in like 2001 noticing all the games that didn't get word of mouth and then were not talked about. But like, you know, when I think about like some of my games of the years from previous years, it kind of like worries me how many of those are like not in conversation anymore. You know, like something like Before Your Eyes is like one of my favorite games I've ever played. Not a rotten game, but like a game that I love and I think is like a remarkable feat. And even though that game did pretty well and won a lot of awards, I'm not hearing people like talk about Before Your Eyes anymore. And I kind of I worry that, you know, like 20 years out from Silent Hill 2, if you are starting to game, you'll kind of still hear about how good Silent Hill 2 is because it has that reputation. Yeah. And 20 years from now, I wonder what kind of games are going to be able to do that, because I think a lot of our favorites from right now, like, will they be talking about Indica in 20 years? Probably not. And so I worry about the ability for games to build reputation over time.
Yeah. What do you think is a game in the last 10 years that's like maintained?
I think
Breath of the Wild.
I mean, yeah, obviously you have your AAAs. I mean, I do think people will be talking about The Last of Us 2 or God of War or whatever. I think something like Hollow Knight is maybe, or Celeste are kind of like the breakthrough indies that will continue to have a following. And those are great games. But for like as many of those as there are a lot of other indie games that I think are also phenomenal that just don't kind of develop the like rabid community that's required to have a game keep getting talked about and keep getting brought up.
You know what game is going to stand the test of time? Just culture hasn't caught up with us yet.
What's that?
The Order 1886. We're going to look back on that one. Like, that was cool. That was a cool one. That's a cool game.
That's an interesting call because I feel like most of that game's appeal is how good it looks, and that's the thing that ages worst.
Have you seen what that game looks like?
Look, I have, and it looks great, but like in 20 years, we will have a lot of games that look like the Order 1886.
Nah, it just had a swag to it. It just had a big dick gamer energy.
Hey, we'll do it. I've still never played it, so we'll do it one season.
Bro! Oh, we got to. That's the next question.
Gabriel asks, are you interested in trying Haunting Ground in a future season? And I wonder if you've heard about Clock Tower 3. I think magical girl fight slasher villains comes across as less rancid as other games you've covered, but there's some real rot in it.
We've talked about Clock Tower 3 numerous times on this podcast because our bestie, Kenji Fukasaku, did the cutscenes for that game. Maybe it was the bonus pods we've talked about it. I would love to do more Japanese horror games.
I don't know about anything about Haunting Ground. I'm looking it up on. I mean, it's a PS2 survival horror game.
Yeah.
Made by Capcom.
I think it would be really fun. I think this is one of the games that maybe spun out of the original RE4.
Oh.
Maybe not. No.
I'm sure. Okay, well, Euro Thug and Tango Mushi and Severe Hunter have all done videos on it, so well covered among the guests of Something Rotten.
I just feel like I want to play so many more of the Japanese survival horror games because I love their aesthetic so much. But like, it sucks. But from a content perspective, it's hard to add much. You know, like.
Do you mean from like our like we wouldn't be able to say much about it?
Yeah, it's like I don't know what I'm necessarily gonna be able to say about Haunting Ground that the three wonderful women you just brought up haven't already said.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So it's like I'd love to do it. I just don't know that it makes sense for SR.
That being said, I mean, like when we were playing Silent Hill, I was like, what could we possibly say about this that hasn't already been said? And maybe we didn't. Maybe everything we said had already been said, but like it was still a good experience.
That's true. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. I'm sure we'll do a Resident Evil season at some point.
Yeah,
at the very least. So we'll get there.
You know that thing that you didn't ask for? We are gonna do that.
Hey, take what you can get.
And thank you for writing in, Gabriel.
This comes from Leo, but I assume not Vader. But nonetheless, we love you, Leo. Love the show, and especially this season on one of my earliest gaming experiences, even if I was maybe a bit too young for it. I remember my dad buying this game for me after I selected it almost at random from the shelves of my local game store. The box art looked cool, and that was really all I had going for me to want to play Max Payne. However, I was also wondering if I should buy Dead to Rights instead, a similar enough game, or so I thought at the time, but ultimately decided on Max Payne 20 years later, and I'm glad I chose the way I did. My question is, have either of you had a similar moment when you tried one game over another on a whim and ended up loving it so much that almost felt like you were fated to experience it? Love from Langley, British Columbia, Canada. Leo.
I have two examples that are not exactly this, but are interesting. So first, when I first bought a PS3, my only previous gaming console had been a Wii, which was kind of shared with the family. It was like a Hanukkah gift to all of us. And I loved the Wii, but it did not have a lot of kind of grown-up video games as I thought of them at the time. So when I bought a
Sorry, can you define 11-year-old Jacob's definition of adult grown-up video games?
Games with like honestly, it was like linear single-player story-focused games. Obviously with like shooting and stuff, but like even then we had it didn't have I'm about to list two games and they'll be like my definition of what grown-up games were.
Okay.
So when I first bought my PS3, I got 2 games with it, and those were, number 1, Borderlands. And the original Borderlands. And number 2, Brutal Legend. Ooh. And here's the thing. I started playing Brutal Legend, and I returned it, and I got Uncharted 2 instead.
Brother, probably a good choice.
Yeah, a game that I have never wanted to like more and just like couldn't get on with. But I mean, that was a big moment. I am ultimately very glad I got Uncharted 2, even though we kind of talk smack about that series now. It was an amazing experience.
Uncharted 2 is so good. Yeah. Are you out of your mind?
Well, I'm just saying, we are kind of like, and all the Uncharteds of the worlds. But like playing that for the first time was unbelievable. The other time that I had this was I remember being in a GameStop in the mall next to a man who was being paid, I don't know, $2 an hour to be there. And I walked up with the video games BioShock and Metal Gear Solid 4. And I said, which should you buy? And he was like, they're both good. Have you played any Metal Gears before? And I was like, no. And he was like, go with BioShock. And I did. I got BioShock, and I was like, this game fucking rocks.
And
then later I played Metal Gear Solid 4.
2 things. The listener at home, you can't see this. And Jacob, I don't know if you've clocked. I've been in a little bit of a giggle fit over here. And that's because for some reason, when you brought up the Wii, all I could think about was Chad Warden saying, WarioWare, stick it up your own ass. I just couldn't stop laughing.
Great stuff.
Looks like a dildo. WarioWare, stick it up your own ass. Listeners at home, probably don't look up those Chad Warden videos. They haven't aged too great.
No, what do you mean? That quote was so good.
Man, that shit is so fucking funny. So the only thing that comes to mind, I think I've told this fucking story on this podcast, also involves BioShock. I remember being at a GameStop and be like, BioShock, heard that shit goes kind of hard, but what the fuck is Deadly Premonition?
Oh!
And I bought BioShock, and you know what? I fucking loved it.
It's so funny that we both ultimately chose incredibly mainstream hits over cult classics.
Yeah. I don't know that I was mentally ready for Deadly Premonition back then.
Yeah.
At whatever age that was, 18 or 19. I still don't think I'm mentally ready for Deadly Premonition, so I still never played it. But I have played BioShock.
But I do,
and I remember BioShock being good as hell.
BioShock's good, dude. I kind of wish, I feel like there's like a sweet spot where I wish, you know how everyone's like, I wish I had learned Spanish in like preschool, and then I would just know Spanish and I wouldn't have to work on it as an adult. There are games that I wish I had encountered when I had kind of the relatively infinite time of an adolescent, where I had like more time and patience than money, and so I would just try and play through a bad game rather than just switching to a different game. Because I think if I got Deadly Premonition when I was like 17 and I had read like one review that was like, it's cooler than you think, I might have stuck with it and like had a really cool experience. And now at 29, it's like my one precious fleeting life is like, am I really gonna sit down and like bust my way through Deadly Premonition? Maybe at some point, but
remember when we were gonna play Fireside in the Rain for this podcast?
Oh boy, another game that it's like I wish I had played, but the idea, and especially playing it on like a DS emulator on my PC screen, I was like, oh man, this is too much. Here, wait, can I ask you a question? Did you play the original Borderlands?
No, I've never played Borderlands.
I think Borderlands 1 is, I will not say underrated because it sold 1 billion copies, but I think that is an interesting game and has aspects of it that I find much more compelling than the later ones, mainly that it kind of hadn't really gone all in on its voice yet. So even though you have like Claptrap and stuff, it's not quite as grating as some of those future ones. But like that game just had, especially playing it almost exclusively single player, which I did, there was that weird sense of like big open world with actually not that much in it in kind of a compelling way, where I just have a lot of memories of like driving around this big empty world. And like I liked how the guns felt in Borderlands 1 more than 2 and 3. But I guess the reason that I'm bringing this up, because I just always think about this, is I have the Game Informer like reveal trailer of Borderlands 1 when it had the different art style, because the switch to the cel shaded look was like a very late in development switch, and you can see all these pictures of the game with a more realistic art style, and like it's almost certainly better for the series that they chose this cel shading thing, but like it's so cool to look at the other version of Borderlands and just kind of like think about what would have happened if it released and looked like that.
When I was an intern at Game Informer, so this is nearly 10 years ago now, in the second floor bathroom and the stall of the men's bathroom where I would take a shit every day,
hey, good for you.
There was a copy of that Borderlands issue. And I think Ben Reeves wrote it, maybe. Or maybe it was Dan Riker. Something. Anyway, games box art that fucking really caught my eye recently?
What?
Indica. I could not tell you.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
I could not tell you the last game where just the normal ass key art caught my eye.
It's awesome.
Indicas with the fucking all the nuns and the yellow halos around them. It's so good. And Jacob, I for the past week, I would just Google Indica and look at that picture and be like, I can't wait to play this.
It is really like the strength of just a strongly designed and composed image.
Yeah, I can't wait to one day play that game.
Phil asks, I come to you with the most important question that must be settled when discussing Max Payne. Sam Lake, Timothy Gibbs, James McCaffrey. Who is the superior face model for Max? Personally, my vote goes to McCaffrey, says Phil.
Timothy Gibbs, and that has nothing to do with nostalgia. Thank you very much.
Timothy Gibbs, absolutely third on my list, bottom of the barrel. I think my favorite is Sam Lake. I like how McCaffrey looks in Max Payne 3 just because I really like the art direction of that game. But I was going to say if I could snap my fingers, but actually I did, there is a very good mod that replaces McCaffrey's face with basically Sam Lake as he looks in Alan Wake 2 as Max, and it rules, and if I could have Max Payne 3 with essentially that, what's his name in Alan Wake 2?
Alex Casey.
Like the Alex Casey look, I think that would still be my preferred way to go. So I think that makes me Sam Lake.
All right. So here is some interesting tidbits from Timothy Gibbs' IMDb. His first credit, 1979.
Wow. Good job.
He was in a TV movie called Sex and the Single Parent. And then let's see here. There's some good stuff in here. It's kind of interesting. He was in one episode in 2000 of Sex and the City. He played Detective Stevens. So there you go. He was in Pacific Rim. Do you know which character he played?
No, I don't.
He was Marine.
Oh.
Uncredited.
Wow.
Uncredited. So interesting stuff from Timothy Gibbs.
Well, I was looking, so I didn't actually realize. Oh, I should have watched this before. This would have been cool. I just Googled it. So I didn't realize that McCaffrey was the face model for Max Payne 3, although it's obvious in retrospect. Yeah. But apparently, Jeff Keighley tweeted probably because McCaffrey died, his conversation where he also did performance capture for it.
Oh, cool.
Which makes sense, but is still cool and would be. I'm gonna watch this video later because obviously Rockstar had gone all in on the face and performance capture stuff with LA Noire to a level that they've kind of never attempted again because it was so hard. Yeah. But it is cool thinking about this as around the same time, and them, now having games where the voice and the face and the acting is all done by the same person is more commonplace, but that has not always been the case, and still you have you have characters who are voiced by one person and acted by another.
Yeah.
And so it's just cool to see that McCaffrey was doing all of it. And we saw him, that little glimpse of him in the Max Payne movie. Probably my favorite part of that movie. Because I got to say, hey, that's James McCaffrey.
I was curious what y'all believe this comes from. Don't know who this comes from. They didn't put a name. I was curious what y'all believe would be a good alternative to comics for the Max Payne remakes if they don't just do comics. You guys keep mentioning it, but never get super deep into it, so I'm curious. I think a VHS type thing would be cool, and maybe even thinking you rewind the tape before starting the level could be interesting and be used to lean more into the overall meta narrative. I just want to see them evolve the comic book. I want to know what that looks like in 2024. Like, I really don't want it to change formats. I want to see, like, what is your all's idea to update this?
Yeah, I think evolving the comic books would be cool. I like the VHS idea a lot. I had mentioned previously they should just do full FMV, like live action cutscenes, you know, kind of go, especially if they want to keep that separation. I think what would be cool actually is so here's a bit of a lead up. I was playing Metal Gear Solid 3 last night. I decided, hey, I should just play this game.
We're doing a season.
We haven't talked about that and if we did the season, it probably wouldn't be before the remake came out, and we'd probably play the remake, right?
That's true. I just thought you were saving yourself for marriage.
Oh, sorry, God. And in the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 3, they have this like very grainy footage of like U.S. presidents speaking. Like they have like JFK. And for a minute, I was like, is this like pre-rendered CGI that just looks very real because it has like VHS static over it? And then I was like, no, this is just real historical footage. But you can, like, now graphics and especially like pre-rendered footage has the ability to look real enough that, especially if you kind of fucked it up with like fake analog noise, you could make it look almost FMV. And so I think that would be kind of a cool thing to do, of being like you're watching a shitty camcorder version of something that looks live action. But it would be a big change to the pacing of Max Payne, so I don't know how it'd work out.
Did you watch that video I sent you all about the dude? I think the game's called Geometry Blaster. He made a 3D level
Geometry
in a 2D
Dash
game. Yeah, dude, craziest fucking thing I've seen.
He basically used math to make a 2D game look 3D, which I always kind of like wondered about. I was like, could you do this? And he did.
And then did that classic video essay, game dev video essay thing where the end of it is him having a mental breakdown. That's like, yep, all right, well, I guess that's how you end that.
Yeah, though I think he earned it based on everything that he had to do in that.
Earned his mental breakdown.
Yes. Earned at least pulling the trope of the mental breakdown, I mean.
That if y'all want to watch that at home, and I highly recommend you do, that comes from the YouTuber SPU7NIX. SPU7NIX. I'm not sure how you
rolls off the tongue.
But 7NIX, I guess.
All right, this one's for me, so I'll read
Spudnix. That's what it would be.
Spudnix. Just emailing in. This one also doesn't have a name. Because I was catching up on episodes and listened to the 50th special where you said if anyone watched the Madness series to drop a line. Not only did I watch Madness Combat, I watched it in maybe the best context. A growing teenager slowly becoming less associated with his religious upbringing. My parents raised my siblings as pretty strict Christians in the 90s and early 2000s, but slowly they loosened their grip as the church we went to became less of a thing they liked. So my time online in the early 2000s, or aughts, went from Red vs. Blue, a show teeming with language, so I'd wear headphones while watching it to avoid getting in trouble, to Zhao Zhao, a cool Flash-based stick figure fighting series that didn't have any blood or gore and mostly focused on martial arts, and then came Madness Combat. As a teen slowly becoming less associated with strict Christianity, with the strict Christianity Kool-Aid, took me a minute. Madness Combat is geniusly transgressive. That series over time is about the same thing every time, but more graphically violent each time. At first, it's just a happy dance gunfight where Jesus makes some zombies and a clown. Then, it's a series about shooting the sheriff. Before long, the main character is shooting literal giants in the face and filling up entire rooms with buckets of blood, while Sunglasses Kanan Lynch crime boss Jesus is stabbing the main character through with a sword of righteousness and getting blown up by a secret C4 charge strapped to the main character. It's a spiral of violence and decay befitting the Something Rotten category in every definition. There was even a video game. Anyway, love the show.
I don't know what the fuck Madness is, but that was a trip.
Blake, it rules. You gotta watch it. I mean, it's like early Flash animation shit. It was on Newgrounds, and it was one of those things where it was like the craft was getting better. You know, it's like what Madness 1 looks like to what Madness like 10 looks like. Yeah. The difference is so crazy. And they were getting more complex, if not necessarily better taste. You know, it was like the guy was getting better at the thing he did, and the thing he was doing kind of got increasingly stupid, but like you couldn't deny the just talent behind it in kind of the same way that I might feel about like Michael Bay, where I was like, well, this is stupid, but like no one else could be pulling this shit off.
What an insane comparison, but I respect it. Gotta respect it. This comes from Eric. Or do you have more to say about Madness?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. This comes from Eric. In the first episode of Max Payne 1, you talked about Sam Lake's name and how his real surname is actually Jarvie. Well, fun fact, Jarvie in Finnish translates to lake in English. How wonderful to have a catchy name in multiple languages.
Maybe I was doing a bad job listening. I never even considered that Sam Lake was not his real name.
Jacob, he's from Espoo, Finland.
Well,
what you think? Dare in America? From Kazakhstan? Are you out of your mind?
He's like, okay, yeah, his name is Sammy Antero Jarvie. Look, I'm not saying I'm smart. Man. I'm just saying that I didn't remember it.
That's so funny.
He's like, do you know that that baseball NES game that has all the fake American names?
Yeah.
Mike Truck.
Derek Hot Dog.
Todd Bonzala was one of my favorites.
That's great. You got this next one?
Yeah, sorry, I just want to read some more of these. Sleevey McDykel.
McDykel, you can't say that in 2024.
Willie Dustis. Jeremy Gride.
Whew. Man, Japan back in the day, they had their finger on the pulse of America.
That's right. Blake, I started listening to Gezin. Is that how you say it? Gazon, and they fucking rip. Please recommend more music. Thanks, DJ. Thanks, DJ. P.S. Shouts out to my friend Salem St. Cloud, who recommended this podcast. Thank you, Salem St. Cloud.
Hell yeah. What a name, Salem St. Cloud. Coincidentally, I've been listening to a lot of Gazon again. After that episode, I believe, they had a new song come out called Shangri-La. Oh, actually, they had a new album come out March 8th that I completely missed. So, there you go. It's a new Gazon album. God, what have I recently been listening to? Sorry, Jacob, you're just gonna have to give us a second here. Knocked Loose has a new record out that is doing unbelievably well. Just charting all over the billboards, which as a 502 man, very proud to see that. Their new album, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To, just came out. It has, Jacob, do you know the YouTuber Poppy?
Yeah.
Poppy is on this record. This record's unbelievably heavy, especially for how like mainstream successful it is. Poppy is on the record screaming. It's the sickest shit I've ever heard in my life. Like, wow. So shouts out to Poppy, dude. I've been listening to a lot of Joan of Arc, which is, if you're familiar with the Kinsella brothers, they were in Cap and Jazz together, and then Owen Kinsella is the singer of American Football. One of the projects they have is called Joan of Arc. Their albums, he's got the whole This Land in Your Land in his hands. Their first album, Portable Model of, and then my favorite by them, Live in Chicago 1999, which I don't think is a live album, but nevertheless, I've been listening to a lot of them. They fluctuate between really, really incredible music and just some unlistenable garbage. that I super recommend. And then let me get a couple more here. Wet Leg, who I believe is very popular, but like I don't know, I'm not too keyed in on cool music, but I've been listening to Wet Leg. I like their song Wet Dream and Chase Lounge. Wet Dream, Jacob, here's the thing. Not too many pop radio songs mention Buffalo 66 by Vincent Gallo, but that fucking song does. So
I was going to ask if their name is Wet Leg and the song you've been listening to is Wet Dream, if just every song they have is wet at the beginning of it.
No. So yeah, I've been listening to those.
Blake, can I tell you what I've been listening to?
Oh, hold on. I have one more recommendation. Akasiku. It's spelled Akasick. They recently got back together. Really rad, girl-fronted rock band that I really, really recommend. Their EP Pretty is so sick. So there you go. What have you been listening to?
I listened to the soundtrack to I saw the TV Glow. You just fully cut out for me because you screamed so loud.
Dude, here's the thing. I'm a Jane Shimbrin lifer. This is going to be an annoying thing to say, Jacob. I'm sorry, but I just need you to trust me. That soundtrack's great. And I know you're never going to watch We're All Going to the World's Fair. Please just go listen to the soundtrack. The Alex G soundtrack is
No, I totally... I mean, here's the thing. I want to watch World's Fair really bad because I felt I just was so struck by how good TV Glow was. But the asterisk there is I asked y'all, I was like, hey, is TV Glow like scary at all? Because I know like World's Fair is pretty scary, and all three of you, Blake, Mitch, and AJ, were like not remotely scary, not scary at all. And I watched it, and I was like, if this is not remotely scary in comparison to our other one, and I found it like pretty frightening, I do not think I can handle World's Fair.
I think the way Jane Shimbrin, apologies if I'm not pronouncing their name correct, but nevertheless, the director of I Saw the TV Glow and We're All Going to the World's Fair, I like genuinely believe she is the director of our generation. Like, she just understands the internet and millennial culture so beautifully and can like translate that into moving images so perfectly that when she made a experimental horror film based around a girl who is kind of obsessed with YouTube, like the way it preys on specific fears of like people our age and younger, I suppose, but like, you know, like roughly our generation, and a little bit above and below us. Like, man, there are just scenes in that movie where I'm like, I don't think this would be scary to someone over 38, but to me, it is like the scariest thing I could ever imagine. In a way that I think does speak to like Jane is just the director of the 2020s. Like, it is just no further conversations.
Yeah, there is,
and the way she can prey on that shit is unbelievable.
Have you seen a self-induced hallucination?
No.
I don't know how wide a release this got at all, but was apparently is like their second listed thing on IMDb. But it seems very small scale. Yeah, I mean, I think of this. I think one of the most impressive things that really any art, but typically it comes up in movies the most, is like a director can do is make something in which a situation should not be scary and make it scary. I think is like the thing that I'm most consistently impressed by. And this is, I would say David Lynch is kind of the king of this, where like I've said before, I think the scariest scene in a movie is the scene in Mulholland Drive where that one guy is describing the bad dream he had to another guy, which is on its face a scene where almost nothing scary happens in it until the very end when like someone pops out. But like the dread of just sitting in that cafe and kind of feeling it. And there are things that I Saw the TV Glow does where like they're showing a scene from this TV show that is like, if you described it and said this was frightening, you would sound insane, if you were just like saying the events that happened on screen. And I like read the Wikipedia plot summary after I saw it, just to be like, how are they going to write this? And the answer is not well. And it does not communicate any of like the movie's vibe. But yeah, like when you are watching them, you're just filled with such like a sense of dread, of kind of like doom. And it is just so impressive to me.
Now you got me thinking about what's the scariest thing I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Australian horror movie?
Nope.
I know you haven't. Lake Mungo.
Oh, no, but I am familiar with it.
Yeah, it's kind of picked up popularity in the last 5 to 10 years. It's a cool movie. I think it tries to do way too much, and kind of in having to fold in on itself several times, kind of loses the thread a bit. But there's a scene in there that I know other people have talked about. I believe Ryan Hollinger, the YouTuber I like quite a bit, who makes cool horror videos. I think he was the one who talked about this. There's a scene where a character just walks towards the camera that is like, I've never been that scared before of watching a film. Like, and it's not really like the visuals, which like I'm a very visual oriented person, but it was the idea. Like, it was like the existential idea of this moment in this movie. I remember like I've never felt like that before from a movie. Like, I don't even fuck with that hard. I'm like, that's a cool movie, I guess, but it has, I think, the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life in it.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I was just like, what's the most scared I've ever been by media? It is, in fact, that scene in Anatomy where you, specifically the part where you put the tape in the tape player and it breaks from the kind of detached voice to the like personal whispering one, and it starts describing a man walking down the hall of the house that you're standing in. It's like I literally don't think I've ever been more scared watching a piece of media than that.
I know we talked about this on the episode, but the fact that nothing happens after that, so the tension is never relieved. Yeah, that's up there with Lake Mungo.
Do you know the character? Have you watched any Twin Peaks?
No, I've only seen one David Lynch thing ever. I see Razorhead.
No, there's this character named Bob in Twin Peaks who I think was literally like a camera operator accidentally captured on screen that then they decided to like incorporate into the plot of the show. But there's this scene where you're in a character's bedroom and like the camera is just like slowly rotating just in like a steady circle around the scene, and it's just like going and going and going, and then in a corner there's just this guy named Bob who's there, and it's like the most frightening thing. He's a king, dude. He can make anything scary.
You want to just keep talking about scary things we've seen?
Give me one more.
I think one of the scariest, the like when I think about pivotal, Jacob, I don't know if you knew this. I like horror.
Yep.
When I think of the critical scares of my life, there are the ones in Halloween, of course, where Michael Myers is just in the background, kind of. Ooh, hate that shit. So scary. There's of course the Exorcism of Emily Rose, where her boyfriend wakes up and she's contorted on the ground. Ooh.
Oh, you know what? What's a good one? A quick one. In It Follows, when that tall guy walks through the door.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah. A recent one I saw. Well, this is not a recent movie, but a recent one I saw. La Intruder, Inside, not the Bo Burnham film. When the lady shows up and she's outside the glass window. But the one I remember from my youth that like it scared me so bad, man, was the Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill. And if you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about. Where the lady she's knocking on the wall. I don't even remember why they're knocking on the wall, but they're knocking on the wall trying to find like a hollow spot in the wall or something. Story's too scary. The police are coming. They're knocking on the wall trying to find like I don't remember why, but she stands up, turns around. There's just this old ass lady behind her making this like face, and then they push her on like a skateboard.
Was this a scary movie scene?
Dude, no, it is literally the scariest thing I've ever seen. I gotta find this one. I just need you to see. It's like possibly the most famous scene in House on Haunted Hill. Is this fucking old ass lady who I ended up looking up at one point. She has an album that's like really crazy. Anyway, House on Haunted Hill.
Speaking of I Saw the TV Glow, an early scary thing for me was I loved Buffy. I was a huge Buffy fan. And there's a scene in a season 2 episode of Buffy where she's like a bunch of kids are like getting sick, and then she gets sick and she's like in a hospital, and there is a jump scare that I later in life realized is exactly copied from that Exorcist 3 jump scare where it's like long shot of the hallway and someone walks past, and they just like do that in Buffy. But since I hadn't seen Exorcist 3, I didn't realize that it was like a reference, and so I was just like, that scared the shit out of me.
Have you ever seen Exorcist 3?
Nope.
That movie it's so fucking good. The thing that actually brings it down is just that they tie it into being an Exorcist movie. But there's a scene, it's not the jump scare, which is really good, but there's a scene where they describe, just through words, they describe how someone was killed. And I remember it like deeply scared me, just them like describing this fucking murder. Are you watching that video?
I pulled it up, but I decided not to watch it on pod. I'll watch it.
Like 25 seconds.
Okay, it's 25. Okay, I'll do it.
Okay. Folks at home, if you want to just Google House on Haunted Hill Lady, it'll pop right up.
When was this movie released?
59, I think.
She's knocking on the wall.
Yeah.
She's knocking lower down on the wall. She's holding a candle.
That's right. It's scary, isn't it? It's just scary.
Wow, and she's just standing there, and she is on a skateboard.
Yeah, I still have my VHS I had as a child of House on Haunted Hill.
It is. I mean, and it's like the obvious point, but it's like it's the reaction that makes it, because she just screams so hard in that. Also, TV Glow, amazing scream in that movie. If you saw it, did you see The Beast, or did just AJ see that one?
I have not seen The Beast.
In The Beast, there is from our girl Leah Seydoux, quite a scream in that movie.
So anyway, yeah, DJ, I don't know, the new Knocked Loose record, Akasiku, Gazon has a new record out. I got to go listen to that. So
can I give one more listening recommendation? It's a podcast, so it's totally not what they're asking for.
Okay.
I've been listening to this new podcast called 16th Minute. By Jamie Loftus, who I know as the writer of this hot dog book that came out like last year. It's called Raw Dog, A History of Hot Dogs. She's a very funny writer. 16th Minute is just a podcast about like main characters of the day on the internet, which sounds annoying. Like, it does not sound like a podcast where you're like, oh, I want to hear about Bean Dad. But like, Blake, I think you should listen to this, because it's essentially all scripted. It's just her reading like an essay that she wrote about it. And she has such a funny writing style. And then she like gets kind of like, the most recent one. Well, the most recent one is Boston Slide Cop, which turns into a whole, you know, like the cop who went down the slide and like shot the fuck out.
Right.
And it turns into a whole like Freedom of Information Act thing where she's trying to figure out who the cop was. But she also did one. She did one on like the dress, like the blue dress, gold dress thing that just involved talking to like a number of people who kind of worked at BuzzFeed and whatever at the time, of like how this form of virality was like the beginning of the end for basically anything on the internet.
Sure.
It's very good. I don't
16th
minute. Like after your 15th minute of fame is your 16th minute.
I see.
I don't start listening to new podcasts very often, but this one I was like, I'm on board.
All respect to Jamie Loftus. When you said her name, I mistook her initially. I don't remember the author's actual name, but the book review article.
I know what you're talking about.
Did you read this thing? Did you read this book review article?
Yeah.
What'd you think? Good stuff, right?
Yeah.
I had no dog in this fight. I'm not familiar with that lady's writing, and frankly, it sounds like she's not a great writer. But that review was like, that's some epic shit. That was good stuff.
We all love a takedown.
I mean, Like who won? Kendrick or the book review lady? Who had the better diss?
There's a very good review of this book called Boy Mom just came out, and I read I think the New Yorker review of it. That described the book as being in a defensive crouch, trying to make every incident of national or social importance like directly about it and nothing else. It was it's like you don't especially read in the New Yorker like it just like this thing stinks kind of review very often, and I appreciated it. All right, let's go to the next question.
All right, a question about the genre. Which do you think has the most unexplored potential for rottenness? I was thinking about Frostpunk the other day and how that's maybe a little bit rotten. I was thinking about Frostpunk yesterday too because it's something Jacob Geller wrote. And it made me wonder if there's other city builders out there that might have untapped rot reserves. Maybe dating sims could be rotten. Isn't that Doki Doki Literature?
Yes, exactly.
Is Leisure Suit Larry a rotten series? Undoubtedly. How about a rotten racing game or a flight simulator? Think about the camera discussions of Kane and Lynch 2 and the AC-130 mission. Maybe a city builder could work with a CIA, NSA, whatever style satellite spy camera being your only view, such as obscuring your base when clouds roll in or when satellites go out of view. Keep up the good work, and thank you so much for all the book and film suggestions. Blake, you have despicable taste. Jake in beautiful South Oxfordshire.
Wow.
Leisure Suit Larry is rotten. Yes. Wasn't the city builder like spy cam? Wasn't there a game like that? Like something about reading the question. It's like,
well, I have an answer that's maybe not what you were thinking of, but I recently talked to someone who wrote. I was not aware of this game, but they told me about it. You know the game Plague Inc., the like big iPhone game? There is another one of those that I did not hear about called Rebel Inc., which is about like establishing like putting down kind of a guerrilla war movement, and it is basically just like, hey, let's like play like the invasion of Afghanistan or something, where it's like, oh, you know, you can put like a more brutal leader in charge, and like they might be unpopular, but they're also going to keep those rebels at bay. And it was like hearing about this game, I was like, oh boy, this is like a kind of strategy game that's really rotten, perhaps unintentionally.
I actually the other day, while using my dear roommate AJ Moser's PlayStation 5, discovered the most rotten game in video game history. I don't remember the name of it, but it's a cop simulator on the PlayStation Network. Full of AI art. Like the key art is just a massive AI photo of a cop.
Is it I'm just searching police simulator patrol officers. Cop officers. Police simulator of NYPD City. I think this is it because this is an incredibly AI image.
Dude, it's the most bleak shit I've ever seen. Look at this fucking game.
I'm trying to find any footage of it, which it does not have on its store page.
I was very tempted to buy it, but it was like $25 or something. Like if it was like $5, I was gonna pick it up.
Oh boy, this thing is wow. It's got. I mean, it doesn't even look like well made enough to actually be rotten, because it's like the cop can barely like get in his squad car, let alone like do violence to minorities.
What's the game called? Oh, never mind. I found it.
In terms of other rotten genres, I think I mean Frostpunk I would describe as pretty. It has the ability. I mean, that game is basically encouraging you to become a fascist. So like there's stuff there. Dating sims is a great question. I mean, as Blake said, Doki Doki Literature Club is an answer. Look, you can make any flight simulator rotten depending on how you choose to fly those planes and into what.
My friend Johnny, who we're about to talk about in 2 minutes, told me the funniest fucking story the other day about Microsoft Flight Simulator. One of his friends, I'm not sure who this person is, but a third party, used to just randomly send Johnny full uncut video of him taking off from the Louisville International Airport and flying a plane directly into Johnny's house.
That's a really good bit.
It's so funny. And the way he told it is like it happened numerous times. He would just get like a 15-minute long video of this dude flying.
Where is he going in this plane?
It's so fucking funny. It's such a good bit. Hold on, I've pulled up this cop game. Dude, this is crazy. This is
like
truly the most odd
something
thing I've
being
ever
made
seen.
in dreams has like a 1000% quality boost over this cop game.
Wow, we have to play this game.
That and Battlefield Hardline doubleheader season coming up.
I think we should do a Battlefield Hardline season. I don't know. Yeah, this is brutal. Next question.
Next question. From Mark. Thanks for making a t-shirt that looks a bit more like a band shirt so I can wear it without drawing attention to myself. As a semi-socially awkward guy, that was a big selling point.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we were shouting out. It looks that way because it's made by Johnny Munch, the bassist of the band Greyhaven, who does a lot of Greyhaven's, at this point, may do all of Greyhaven's merch designs. I'm sure he's done other band merch designs. And runs the bootlegging company From the Void. You can check them out at fromthevoid.co. So yeah, very intentionally, Jacob, I assume you agree with this. We did not want gamer-looking merch.
Well, I asked Blake if we could have a shirt that said "Get a Life?" ? I have hundreds and had a little Mario mushroom on it, but you downvoted that.
So that's a reveal for our next merch drop.
Yeah.
But very intentionally, we're trying to make, respectfully to other podcasts, merch we would want to wear.
Yeah.
Which usually doesn't have video game stuff on it. So I appreciate
Blake,
you.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
What does a bootlegging company mean? I mean, is it just that he doesn't have the official license to be printing this stuff?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's weird that that's like mainstream enough that you can just be like, oh yeah, that's what I do. You know, unlicensed merch designs.
Yeah, it's huge right now. I mean, like in the gaming space, like Espionage VR is really big. He's always doing like the Resident Evil and Silent Hill and Metal Gear shirts. But movie bootlegging is massive right now. I mean, Johnny was able to like quit his job and
do you
do this thing.
Do companies like know and they're kind of like, well, ultimately this is like good for us, so we're not going to be litigious about it?
So I don't know too much, but like I'm fairly certain, especially with newer properties, like these companies will get cease and desists, and then it's like, okay, well, it's just over. We're just gonna take the no one will be able to buy more shirts.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the like the way people get around that is they choose things that aren't necessarily being used much by rights holders, you know, like you might pick a movie from like 25 years ago that it's not like being re-released and shit like that. Or cult movies. You see a lot of horror movie brands, shit like that.
Right.
Or foreign movies. But yeah, did you know our shirt got bootlegged?
Like by someone else?
By like AI scraping companies. Like you can buy a
is it just the thing where
shirt.
you like post any picture on Twitter and then if someone says like, I love this on a shirt, there's like a bot that pops up that says, here it is.
I think it's similar, but if you Google something rotten shirt, like you can find other websites selling them and you almost certainly would get your identity stolen if you did any of these. But my philosophy was because, and I talked to Johnny about this, he agreed with me, was because we hired a bootlegger and technically are making bootleg merch. I don't want to ask anyone who's bootlegging our merch to take it down.
Yeah, I think
just
that's
feel like that's in the spirit of it. So
wow, somehow there's a. Oh no, I was like, it's on YouTube, but it's just a post that I made. This is a bad podcast to be talking so much about merch, given that no one can buy anything at the moment. Sorry, everyone.
We'll do more merch eventually. Don't worry about it.
All right, last question.
Last one. So if you had to boil down and essentialize these games to a single idea, theme, using a single word, what would it be? And a similar follow-up question with the remix coming out soon. What is one thing for the originals that you feel absolutely should be preserved in the remix? And what is one thing that you feel should absolutely be changed or at least reimagined in a different way? This comes from Mostafa.
That's okay. So they're just talking about Max Payne, but I kind of want to like speed round these with.
Oh man.
Okay, so let's do Max Payne 1 and 2 first.
Noir.
Both of them?
Yeah. That's how it's sold. They're in noir.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's like can you separate them? I think I want to have more than one word, but
I'm going noir.
It's hard. It's hard to just do one word that's not noir. Slow motion.
Shut the hell up.
Okay.
Okay.
Max Payne 3. One word.
Cool.
Cool. Kane and Lynch 1.
Shit.
Kane and Lynch 2.
Shit. Good.
Shit.
Good.
Positive. Okay, I'm not going to do all of them, but just to find some more of the interesting ones. The Darkness.
Italian.
DMC Devil May Cry.
Homophobic.
Killer 7.
9/11.
Killer 7, 9/11. We didn't start the fire.
I was trying to sell friend of the show Moises Tavares on Killer 7 the other day, and I just said it's the most a game has ever been about 9/11 ever that isn't Call of Duty. And he was like, all right, I guess that's
yeah. Save that for when Black Ops 6 comes out later this year.
Yeah.
Iron Lung.
Hard.
I think we nailed this. And Disco Elysium. Words.
A scholar.
I've read one book.
Literary. Yeah, that's good stuff. I don't know. Silent Hill 2 would be wife.
Yeah, Silent Hill 2, guilt. Silent Hill 3, woman.
All right. What do you think that from the originals that should be absolutely preserved?
Oh yeah, preserved.
I'm gonna say the comic books. I'm doubling down. I want the comic books in these games.
Let's see. One thing from Max Payne 1 that should be preserved. I think his like lack of redemption. Like
Ooh,
I don't want him to be more sympathetic. It's like you can give him a dead wife and kid, but like don't give him a save the cat. Like make him like a bastard, because I think that is important. Something that should be changed or at least reimagined. I mean, obviously, yeah, the some of the combat design, though I like a lot of it. I don't know. What if they were? Well, I guess the comic books break up the levels.
I mean, the obvious question or the obvious answer is like, oh, there's like a lot of rock star shit that just did not age well,
especially in 2. Yeah.
Like, we don't need the sex worker stuff. We don't need the unhoused jokes where it's like, oh, he's puking.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think Remedy would do stuff like that in 2024 or 2026 probably. So it'd be nice to see like that stuff be handled better. I think Mona could be a more compelling character. Certainly in 1, but also in 2.
Yeah,
like, I think
don't take out the fact that she got shot in the head. That's important. We want them to be brain damaged.
We absolutely don't need the Sleeping Beauty line. Yesterday I was driving, and I decided I'm gonna listen to Something Rotten. It's like,
wow.
other than editing it, I don't listen to the show. So I was like, I want to get the listener experience of listening to it while driving. And we talked about that line. I was like, I got mad in the car. I was like, that fucking line sucks so bad. Leave that alone. I think I'm so curious.
Blake, you know what they need to change? In Max Payne 1, his jump can't just be him falling over. He needs to get some fucking inertia with that.
I've been thinking about this, and I think they're gonna make Sam Lake Max Payne.
I'm sure they will.
I think they are, and I think it's gonna fucking rock, man.
Though you mean just because he won't be the face. Yeah, the voice is the biggest question mark.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine they're just gonna, because that game's gonna require rewrites. You can't just pull the old voice lines. Like, I'm gonna respect the recast. That's a tough position to be in.
Yeah.
Like, what can you do?
And it's like, would it be better? I always wonder this, where it's like, well, there are people who can do really good impressions, like the like Rick and Morty recasting. I haven't watched that show in years, but I saw clips, and it's like, hey, you know what? They sound like they still sound the same.
You know who I think has been a recast in a video game that I think
I thought you were gonna say, who I thought would do a good job? Justin Roiland.
No,
make him Max Payne.
But someone who was a recast in a different video game, I'm Kiefer Sutherland. That would be a good Max
That would
Payne.
be awesome. And Max never talks. They just
What is Kiefer Sutherland even doing these days? Like, he's not like
getting aggressively drunk, according to every story about him. Though those are old. There are stories about him like tackling a Christmas tree.
It sounds like he'd be a great Max Payne.
Yeah, he's been practicing.
Okay, I've played 3 Metal Gear games. It's not even a competition how much I prefer Kiefer Sutherland's voice to David Hayter's.
Yeah, but you also just think Kojima's a bad writer, and there's way less writing for Snake in MGS5.
I don't think. I know.
Hey, I'll tell you, some of that writing at the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 3,
dude,
real stuff.
I saw Furiosa.
Yeah.
There's so much Kojima in the shooting of that movie. But I know that it's George Miller that Kojima's ripping off.
Yeah.
But as someone who began this journey playing Kojima games, like the scene, there's a long tracking shot where they're dragging the dude with the bike.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's constantly being like, look in the background, look in the foreground, and it's moving and there are characters talking. I was like, that is Kojima to a fucking T. Like, that is Metal Gear Solid 5 Kojima right there.
Yeah.
Love it.
Did you see that clip of George Miller seeing Kojima on the red carpet?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm always so curious, like, what does it look like when Kojima's like hanging out with these directors who like cannot directly speak to each other?
I don't know.
You know, like that. Also, if Kojima's translator wrote an autobiography, I would pick that shit up so fast to just be like, so he just calls you at like 8:30 at night and is like, hey, I'm doing a Zoom call with Jordan Peele. Get over here.
Can we circle back to Furiosa really quick?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so there's a moment in that movie where it's another tracking shot where you're on the road and then you're in the sky and then you pan across to the other side of the sky and then you go back down. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
The motherfuckers with the paragliders?
Oh, yeah, of course.
The hardest I have hooted and hollered in a movie is watching. I have no clue how they shot. I would assume it's a crane, but you're also following a paraglider.
Yeah.
Because it seemed practical.
Yeah, I think it is.
And they are like literally changing altitude. It's the craziest shit I've ever seen. Like, I get that they did the Halo jump in Mission Impossible, but this was crazier because they were probably also having heat stroke in the middle of it.
No, that I really like, just in terms of camera moves, there's that scene at the very beginning where Furiosa's mom is chasing the dudes who captured her, and she snipes one of them, and the camera, like, it like comes out of his head, or like it like goes into his head, and it's just kind of the camera becomes the sniper bullet.
Dude, have you ever seen you fucking haven't. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from like
Oh no, but I know the shot you're talking about.
Yeah, they pick up the girl in this such a 2000s moment. She pulls a gun out of her fucking vagina, blows her brains out, and then they do a fucking moving shot through the exit wound of her head out the back of the car, and it is honestly, it's fucking awesome. Like, I don't know what to tell you, dear folks at home. That's a terrible movie. That is a fucking awesome moment. You know what? That might actually be the Hills Have Eyes remake. I don't remember. No, it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's a bad movie.
It reminds me of the first R movie I saw in theaters, Wanted, starring Angelina Jolie. They do a lot of like slow-mo bullet through the head, and then they like follow the bullet back through the head, and you like see it was shot from like a mile away.
Dude, there's a scene in Dead or Alive 2 Birds by Takashi
Oh, I thought you were
Miike.
going to say beach volleyball.
No. Dead or Alive 2 Birds by Takashi Miike, where like 5 dudes put their gun to a dude's head and they all pull the trigger at the same time, and it goes into this like X-ray animation of all the bullets entering his head and meeting in the middle.
Sniper Elite 2, baby.
Dude, Dead or Alive 2 Birds. That's a good fucking movie. Check that shit out.
The subtitle is Birds?
Mm-hmm.
All right, no further questions.
Do you know anything about the Dead or Alive series?
No.
Jacob, you don't need to watch Birds. I don't think that's a movie for you. You should absolutely watch Dead or Alive 1 tonight. It's like 90 minutes long. The ending of that movie will make you will write an essay about it tomorrow. The ending of that movie, and I know you hate when people are like, "Oh, do this and write stuff." Jacob, it's so Jacob coded. What happens at the end of this movie? If you've ever wanted to see a Sora's Wrath put to celluloid,
oh boy, now that is a way to sell me on something.
Like the end of this movie is jaw dropping. What they do for no reason. It's just completely contextless, and then the movie's. Please just watch it.
All right.
It's fucking crazy.
I'm taking the recommendation seriously.
The movie also opens with a guy doing a 80-foot long line of cocaine.
Love that.
Begins with that. Yeah.
This has been Something Rotten, nominally an episode about answering questions about Max Payne. We hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for our next season. Go to Nebula, where you can hear us do a commentary on the movie Max Payne with AJ Moser. One of the most fun episodes we've done in a while. And on that commentary at the end, you can also hear what we're doing next season.
Yeah.
That's it.
Bye.